Real life is way more awkward than it looks in movies. You've all seen it, hot couple in a bar on the screen, little glance into each other's eyes, and boom, they're back at one of their apartments doing the old horizontal greased weasel tango. In real life though, they're stood in a taxi queue in the rain for 15 minutes, one of them desperately needs a piss, the other gets a text from their ex, and there is no deep bassy soundtrack to drown out the squelch. Yes, I know, we go to the pictures for escapism. But I have nothing else in my life right now but overthinking all of these things, so yeah, ever considered all the awkward, cringeworthy moments that would have been caused by defeating Thanos and having billions of the dusted humans being resurrected 5 years after they've left? No? Well, I have. My name is Adam Cleary, and these are the 10 awkward moments that would have happened after Avengers Endgame. Number 10. Everyone wants to murder Hawkeye. Yep, no foreplay, just cutting to the point here. After losing his family in the snap, it's fair to say that Clint Barton goes a little off the deep end. And by that, I mean he ventures off onto a worldwide massacre against various crime outfits, including the Yakuza. However, given that his business was presumably far from finished when he was dragged from Japan by Black Widow, it's probably safe to say that he left some loose ends along the way. So while Clint ultimately gets his family back, is he now a wanted man? Are his family safe? Or did he perhaps assume the Ronin persona one more time to kill anyone who knew of his existence? Yeah, you see, the thing is, with an enemy as pervasive and powerful as the Yakuza, it's tough to believe he'd ever have been able to, how do I put this, ever leave the safety of some sort of nuclear sealed off bunker ever again. And that's before the actual police catch wind of any of the things he's done. Number 9, some of Peter Parker's classmates are now all college grads. Yeah, small scale this one, it's fair to say that Endgame didn't quite rectify the snap in the manner that many fans expected. That is, reversing it and effectively rewinding the time back from the 5-year interim period. Instead, the MCU's current year is now 2023, which creates a number of, odd possibilities that will hopefully be explained in the upcoming Spider-Man film. Though it seems from the trailers that all of Peter Parker's best pals will conveniently have been dusted alongside him, about half of his class would have survived the snap, which then means they would have completed high school and likely graduated from college during those 5 years lost. Class sizes, school romances, all an absolute mess now, and, well, fingers crossed that's all looked at in Far From Home because it is a comedy goldmine, honestly. Number 8, Castaway Syndrome. Quick psychology lesson for you here. One major unexplored consequence of the snap is how it would have resulted in what we're going to call Castaway Syndrome. With resurrected people returning home to find that their spouse or partner has grieved, moved on, and then subsequently just booked the mourning widow next door. What if you were snapped in the middle of the night and upon returning to the land of the living, found any number of other people just in bed with you and your former boo? Hell, what if they moved out of the family home following your death and it's now occupied by a new tenant who isn't wild about materializing strangers? That's not to forget the massive unemployment issue, what with all these snapped having been posthumously relieved of their jobs and replaced. And what about life insurance policies? Presuming the snap triggered all those payouts, what happens to all the money when people return? I mean, yes, it's highly unlikely we'll ever see this side of the snap's aftermath explored in the MCU, but it's actually quite fascinating when you stop and think about it. Number 7, Doctor Strange has to explain that a rat saved the universe and that he knew that from the beginning. Probably the single most unexpected thing in the entirety of Endgame was the revelation that the universe was actually saved by a rat, which, you know, just so happened to accidentally press a button that reactivated the quantum tunnel and brought Scott Lang back into our dimension. This is especially hilarious when you consider that Doctor Strange watched all 14 million plus possible outcomes of the Avengers fighting Thanos. Meaning he was presumably well aware during Infinity War that it was basically all gonna come down to a goddamn rodent. Can you imagine that conversation?
Hey guys, we saved the universe!
Hey! Well done, us.
Whoa. One thing I don't get still is how did Ant-Man get out the quantum realm?
Oh, yeah. I hadn't thought about it. Hey, it's strange, you saw everything. How did Ant-Man escape the quantum realm?
About that.
Number 6, Cap returns the Soul Stone to Red Skull. Good old Steve Rogers ends the movie traveling back in time to return the Infinity Stones to their original location, / also finally get his hole. This means, amongst many other things, that he must have had a run-in with Red Skull while returning the Soul Stone. This is awkward for not one, but two reasons. Firstly, Cap and Johann Schmidt are bitter enemies who surely never expected to see one another again, but hopefully Cap was briefed on this before traveling to Voromir. And secondly, one can't imagine Red Skull has ever had someone return the Soul Stone before this. Which begs the question, what even happens when you give it back? It's safe to assume that it doesn't retrieve a lost soul, as, well, otherwise Black Widow would have been resurrected. But still, seeing Cap sheepishly give the stone back to Red Skull would make for the Blu-ray extra to end all Blu-ray extras. Number 5, KORG and MIEK search for a new housemate. After Thor kills Thanos in 2018 and discovers that there's no apparent way to reverse the snap, he goes into a deep depression. By 2023, he's this overweight alcoholic king of New Asgard over in Norway, and I have said my piece on this, so we'll just move on. Anyway, he appears to be housemates with the Fortnite-addicted KORG and MIEK, his new pals from Thor Ragnarok. Though it's all ultimately played for laughs, Thor does end up leaving Earth to hang out with the open brackets as close brackets Guardians of the Galaxy, presumably leaving the pair with an open slot in their homestead. Then again, we don't really know anything about the logistics of New Asgard, namely how all the refugee property was acquired in the first place, and especially who is paying for it all. But Thor will unquestionably have left a demigod-sized void in his wake, and if Taika Waititi feels like putting together a comedic skit for Endgame's home video release, I would have all kinds of time for them trying to find a new Daryl. They should get Daryl in. Daryl was hilarious. Number 4, people respawn in awkward locations. Going by Peter Parker's comments post-resurrection, it seems abundantly clear that when dusted people return to the land of the living, they just reappear in whatever spatial location they disappeared from with no memory of their absence. Except, this creates some inherently awkward issues, as there's no guarantee that space will be open or unoccupied 5 years later. As already mentioned, this could result in you respawning on someone who has since moved into your former property, or if you're on the toilet at the time of the snap, you might return to find that same toilet currently in use. IGN, God bless them, even took this one step further and ingeniously posited what would happen to anyone who was dusted while flying in an aeroplane. I've done the maths for them, and at any given point in time, there are an estimated 500,000 people currently in the air, which means that when Banner clicks his fingers and brings everybody back, he's going to make some 250,000 people rain down from the sky. Number 3, Black Panther asks for the Wakandan crown back. It's surprising just how little is said in Endgame about the state of Wakanda during the 5-year dusting period, especially as Black Panther was the king of Wakanda, and, well, surely that would throw the country into a bit of disarray. Many originally assumed that T'Challa's sister Shuri would simply take his place, but she ultimately ended up being a victim of the snap also. The most logical assumption is probably that M'Baku survived the snap and presided over Wakanda in his absence. Or that, given the extenuating circumstances, T'Challa's mother Ramonda would be allowed to rule in his absence. While she clearly wouldn't have any qualms about giving the crown back to her son upon his return, things would surely be a tad more awkward in the case of M'Baku or another unknown figure. I mean, do you just get it back? Does the other person maybe not deserve to keep on keeping on? Awkward? Number 2, the world comes to terms with the multiverse. One of the more philosophical considerations of the snap and the eventual salvation of everyone afflicted is how it might color humanity's view of existence, and especially religion. Sorry about that. Yes, anyway, knowing that death is not strictly an immutable, irreversible state, and moreover having confirmation of the existence of parallel universes where alternate versions of everyone can live different lives, it's sure to have ardent atheists and religious zealots alike reconsidering their stances, probably. Now, yes, granted, there's no guarantee that the Avengers would actually bring the rest of the world up to speed on what happened in order to save the universe, but the sheer act of seemingly magicking the dead back to life will be enough to cause major shifts in belief systems the world over, I bet. I mean, plus, Back to the Future is now officially bullshit, so who knows what to believe, quite frankly. Number 1, the environment gets ruined. Again. Following the 5-year time jump, Cap makes a reference to Black Widow that the environment has benefited enormously from the Earth's population being halved. Apparently, the lesser resources allowing the world to at least partially recover from what humanity has been doing to it. Removing half of the world's politicians probably didn't hurt either, am I right, lads? But with the dusted all returning 5 years later, it's safe to say that consumption would return to normal levels incredibly quickly, which will, once again hasten climate change, keep the skies foggy, and leave behind an ugly legacy for future generations. There's also the small problem of 7 billion people suddenly living on a planet that's now only really set up to feed half that many. To say that there would immediately be global wars over the lack of resources is an understatement on a par with saying that I've given this way too much thought. So there you have it, chaps. Those are 10 totes orky momos that would have happened after Avengers Endgame. Let us know what you made of them all in the comments below, and of course don't forget to like, share and subscribe. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. I have of course been Adam Cleary, and I will see you soon, you lucky devils.